Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, I have with me Gil Cohen, and he is one of the speakers at my summit, which is actually next week. So, Gil, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I could use a nap, but that's a whole other story. It's like the weeks going into the last few days going into the summit are always like extra exciting, tiring, but I'm energized and sleepy at the same time. Is that a thing?
It is a thing. I'd say be wary of the post-lunch carb dip. If you're expecting a nap, I expect you'll be sleeping sometime 1-2 this afternoon.
I agree with you on that. So I want to get some clarity. Like, are you like an American in Canada, a Canadian that comes to America? Like, where are you exactly?
I live just north of Toronto. The city I live in, Vaughan, has a really catchy tagline: "The city above Toronto." It's really we're really so proud of ourselves that we tie ourselves to Toronto. But no, I was born in the U.S. I lived in the U.S. in a variety of places, mostly in the Northeast, until I was 8 years old. Then moved to Canada and haven't looked back since then. As my family likes to say, well, most of us are American by birth and Canadian by choice.
I love it. I love it. So I always think Canadians like cold weather more than Americans. Or you really hold on and enjoy the summers better than we do. Maybe it's both.
A little bit of both. Look, I enjoy having four seasons. I enjoy that. I don't mind the cold. I mean, once we get into extremely cold temperatures, I don't love going outside, but in the same vein, I don't love going outside in extremely hot temperatures either. So
I love it.
we're good with it. And the funny thing is that the way it works is we're actually south of a lot of parts of the US. We're south of Minnesota. We're around the same area as I think around Milwaukee or so. So there's a lot of American places that are further north of us and get more extreme weather. We're actually the southern part of Canada. We're the spoiled part of Canada.
I love the way you say that. I remember many years ago, I lived in Massachusetts for a few months, and one of my coworkers went, "Well, you should have known it's going to be cold here with Canada south of us." I said, "Oh my God, I'm a math person, not a geography person, but good point." So after that, I always pay attention, like where's Canada in relation to this location? To then I knew how to dress for the winter. I'll say that much.
Oh, absolutely. I was actually born in Massachusetts in the middle of an ice storm, so I can definitely attest to the fact that it gets cold there.
Yes, definitely. So you're an HR professional. You run your own company. What's the name of your organization, and what do you do there?
It's employee experience design. I have to actually say I'm not an HR professional.
Ooh,
I've never actually technically been in HR. For the first 16 years of my career, so I was a consultant working for HR professionals, working for leadership teams, but it was mostly around talent management, focus on behaviors, that kind of thing. But I was never actually in HR. Then for 2 years, I worked within an organization as manager, director of employee experience. HR was one of the items that I covered, but I also worked on strategy. I helped with technology, facilities, different
great.
elements like that. So and now I've been working for the last two and a half years. Wow, I can't believe it's time has flown. On employee experience, which works a lot of the times with HR groups, especially the way companies are structured. But I always am careful to say I don't want to present myself as something I'm not, and I'm not an HR person, certainly not at heart. I also don't love the phrase HR, the term HR. For me, the semantics of it matter. I don't love referring to people as resources, but that's the history of where it comes from.
Oh, let's talk about that. Oh, I take issue with that too. Um, hu- Human capital is my biggest issue with it. Like, do you realize in the US, you're saying human capital? They're like, yeah, I don't understand the problem. Well, let's talk about chattel slavery, human capital. And they're like, but that's not, or when we say marketplace, and when we're talking about a job board, and then we're going to build a marketplace for women to find jobs. Like, yeah, you might not want, and it's such a disconnect in how you are utilizing certain words when you're talking about people. And so it just makes me wonder. It doesn't make me wonder. It just really shows the disconnect and why some people don't like certain HR departments in organizations, because there's a huge disconnect in the terminology itself. But okay, so now y'all can see why Gil and I get along.
I'm grateful you went to the human capital piece before I did, because that was my next one. Because as much as I dislike human resources, human capital is just that much worse. So thank you for touching on that. I appreciate that.
So I really liked how you like, I'm not in HR, but this is how I support employees and by engaging with HR in these areas. And I think it's really important for people to know you can still support HR in your own areas of expertise. So thank you so much for clarifying and sharing that, because I said it for a reason. So other people are like, oh, he's in HR. No, let's talk about what Gil really does. So employee experience is really important. Your session with us is really interesting because I had you do, or I asked you to do this particular topic. We talked about a few. What is it about your, why should people, and I'm going to share what the cover is again, but why should people really join your session on Thursday next week?
People should join my session, I think, well, first of all, because it's between some other amazing sessions. And if you have nothing else to do, then make sure to join me. But for the session itself, recruiting and recruiting processes, I think a lot of them miss the mark. And a lot of leaders become frustrated as you build a recruitment process and you have to build it from scratch. You take a lot from other people, and what ends up happening is you don't do what's right by your organization. One of the things for me that throughout my career that has been fundamental in employee experience captures that is that every organization is unique. Every group of people is unique. So it's not about taking what was the best practices or this is what Google does or whatever it is and trying to apply that for your organization. It's about understanding how to capture those ideas, how to capture the uniqueness and translate that into processes and practices where you'll be able to thrive in building that recruiting process, as opposed to facing frustration, facing pushback, or facing irritation from people down the road who either don't understand or won't be able to support the process. I think you're on mute.
Of course, I'm on mute. They could, so they can't hear my brilliance that I was saying. Uh, and I love how you talked about the frustrations. We often think once we get it done, it's done, but it's not quite done yet. We still have to work the process and make some changes, and it takes time and effort. And so I really appreciate you doing that, doing this topic, because starting from scratch can seem very stressful, right? Overwhelming. And having somebody who has done it before really join in and say, hey, these are some things to do, these are things to look out for, and sharing their lessons learned. And you understand that Gil's his expertise is also an employee experience. And so how do you marry that, right? In that recruitment process? And I think other people often think internally, right? How do we make this process easy for us? People are looking for a job. It doesn't matter if it's clunky. If they really want it, they'll do it. It's like you're going to miss out on candidates that are like, you know what? This is 18 extra steps, and this other place is 3. Not nobody's posting their pay. So you're both at ground level. Your branding is about the same. I don't know either one of you. You're not, Nike. It really does make it more important in that aspect. So I really like you bringing that, tying that all together.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt there, but I really want to highlight exactly what you said, that they make the process based on what's easy for them, what works for them, without a consideration of when it comes to the recruiting process, the experience is all about the candidate experience. And the candidate experience, and I've seen it with myself in the past, I've seen it with my wife as well, I've seen it with colleagues, the candidate experience can quickly turn you off of even applying. I mean, how many times have we seen, if you follow LinkedIn or whatever, people talking about how you have to put in your resume and then you have to fill it all out again. And I'd be willing to bet most companies that have to do that have lost many, many people just at that step alone. So you're losing out on good candidates because they don't want to jump through hoops to work for your company. I mean, the paradigm has changed. The perspectives have changed where, yeah, maybe 50 years ago, companies could get away with saying, yeah, you're lucky to work for us. You'll do whatever we say. Now, especially in a global market with, I love millennials and Gen Z bringing a different attitude to it. Companies are no longer in the position to just say, we'll put whatever out there and they'll come to us.
I absolutely agree, and I love that. So if you're trying to figure out what we're talking about, what is really going on, I'm gonna pop this up real quick. Uh, Gil is speaking at my virtual summit, talking about using data to retain underrepresented talent, and he's going to be discussing specifically building a recruitment process from scratch. And he brings in the employee experience aspect of it. That's his area of expertise. So you definitely want to join him. Now, before we leave, Gil, I gotta know. There's some things on your wall, like what's really going on? Like,
That is mostly my son's artwork. There are a few pieces by my wife, especially up top, but I tried to showcase my boys' artwork. But it started accidentally, just at the beginning of COVID, when we all had to figure out, a place in our homes to do these calls. I mean, prior to COVID, I was always working in person on client sites, and so now all of my calls were here. My boys were home because they couldn't be in school. My wife was also a teacher, so she was home with them. She kept them occupied with a lot of artwork. And I'll plug Art Hub for Kids on YouTube, which is great for little kids learning how to draw. It makes it really easy for them, step by step. There was actually a brief time my boys were taking requests, and so a few of these on the wall behind are requests that my boys did, but then they got sick of it. And what's just fascinating for me to think is that when they first did this artwork, they were 10 and 6, and now they're 13 and 8. So it's an interesting reminder of how quickly time flies.
yes, that is. Yeah, we've been at this for a while now, and we're not done yet. So
No.
yeah, and I'm one of the people, like, I refuse to let this be my normal. This is like we're passing through this point in time, and we're building up different strengths. We are developing different tactics and tools as well as skills by living through this time. So hopefully empathy is one of those, empathy for mankind. So we'll see. Gil, any final words for those watching us?
No final words other than just come join us. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I'm really looking forward to all of the other talks. I mean, it's such a valuable topic to really understand what it means to maintain a diverse employee population, and what it means to really treat them right, treat them well. And so I look forward to all of the topics, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to participate.
Glad you could join us. So everybody, be sure you go to diversitydata.positivehire.co to go register. Come join us live. We're starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're on the Pacific Coast, we got you. It's 8 a.m. We didn't make y'all try to get up at 6. We understand. So, and we're ending at 2 p.m. So for those on the East Coast, like, look, I have to work all day. I got you. So we're going to end at 2 p.m. That way you still have, you have a whole 3-4 hours in the morning, a whole other 3 hours in the evening. Plus we added a second day. I told Christina yesterday, we added a second day, but the first year I did it was 5 days. So I don't know if I'm like, I don't know. We added a second day compared to last year. Last year we did 1 day. This year we're doing 2. And in 2020, we did a whole week. Don't ask me why I did that at the very beginning of the pandemic, but I have learned a lesson. Don't do it again. So we're either going to say 1 or 2 days. Everybody, be sure to join us. It is complimentary to join, and you'll have a week to watch the replay. So everybody have a good week. And Gil, I look forward to having you join me next week. Yes.
Thank you. Me too.
All right. Bye, everybody.